I love musicals. I especially love those that we call classicals. You know, ones like The King and I and My Fair Lady and Carousel. The plots are so predictable, yet one really doesn't have to think much. And let's face it, under today's society, some of the lines tend to be pretty cheesy. But who really cares when the music and the costumes and the choreography are all so spectacular? One of my absolute favorite musicals is Fiddler on the Roof. You might remember the main character, Tevye? Yeah? Talk about a stereotypical chauvinist. He was over-opinionated, overbearing, obnoxious, narrow-minded, overly concerned, hardworking, and big-hearted. You see, the problem that Tevye faced is one that I think many of us face too. The world, as he understood it, was going away. Remember his fabulous song, Tradition? The traditions that had meant so much for him, the traditions that had helped hold society together, they were disappearing. Not only that, his own wife and daughters began to join in what he saw as an orchestrated effort to destroy the traditions. He didn't understand. Why would people want to do this? In many ways, Tevye was created to be one of those people that we love to hate. In a very comical way, he reminded us of ourselves. When all of our traditions are being destroyed. When everything we held to be dear to us is going away. When nothing is working out as we planned it. When we find ourselves working harder and harder only to realize that we're still losing ground. Tevye reminds us of how difficult life can be. And let's face it, those of us who have found ourselves struggling to pay bills and keep food on the table and a roof over our families' heads, well, we can relate to Tevye's frustration when he began to lament, "If I were a rich man, yubby-dubby-dubby-dibby-dibby-dibby-dum. If all day long I'd biddy-biddy-dum. If I were a wealthy man, I wouldn't have to work hard. Yaddy-diddle-diddle-diddle-diddle-diddle-diddle-dum. If I were a bitty-bitty rich, if I were a wealthy man." What could we do if we were rich? Right? I mean, just think of the worlds that would open up to us. The amazing things we could accomplish. The causes we could support. The respect we could command and the power that we would have. Like in Tevye's dreams, we could walk down the street and everybody would admire us. If only we were rich. And if we were rich, if we were powerful, of course we'd use all of that in the appropriate way, right? Wouldn't we? Do we? That's an important question to ask ourselves. I mean, we get tired of hearing that by the world's standards, we are so much better off than everyone else. But it's the truth. We are. And even the poorest among us are better off than most of the others in the world. How do we use the power? For you see, as a nation and as a church, we have the power. We have the power to put our knowledge, our money, our resources towards that which will help bring about God's kingdom. But Jesus knew how difficult a life like ours would be. He knew that while humans would always long for that life that was free of struggle and hardship and uncertainty, he also knew that it was the life that would kill us. It would be the life that would cause us stress and strain. That's why he preached more about money than any other subject in the Bible, including love, grace, forgiveness, repentance. And people didn't like to hear it any more then than they do now. But Jesus knew that if we weren't diligent, if we didn't continually compare our actions against our good intentions, we would without doubt end up with the man in today's parable. Like him, we would work hard and we would invest wisely. We would take care of our families and those people that we loved. We would contribute to society, and we would even give some to charity. And we would do all of that right up to the place where our possessions begin to possess us. When possessions possessed us rather than allowing God to possess us. For the human tendency towards self-centeredness and greed is universal, historical. And that's why Jesus opened up the parable in today's story with these words. Take care. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. For one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. According to William Barclay, the man in today's parable fell into one trap. The more he owned, the less willing he began to see beyond himself. While he had more than enough, the one thing that never entered into his head was to give some of it away. And this, of course, was the opposite of what Jesus taught. In place of acknowledging that everything he possessed was a gift from God, which was intended to be shared with others, he tried to protect it by locking it away, building bigger storage, keeping it to himself. And as long as our attitudes are that of the rich man, our desire will always be to get more. But if we dare to look beyond ourselves, then the true joy that comes with sharing will be ours. And our lives will grow richer and fuller than even we could ever dream of. For it is when we clear out our lives and open our hearts that God's love will have room to grow, room to flourish within our lives. The ancient Romans had a proverb. It said, "Money is like seawater. The more you drink, the thirstier you become." So, friends, when we find ourselves worrying about the preservation and protection of our possessions, when that becomes more important than investing our time and our energy into helping to build the kingdom, then maybe we should stop drinking from the well of materialism. Maybe it's time to turn our attention back to God, to God's will for our lives and for our possessions. Remember what he said in the book of Deuteronomy. When you build big homes, when you become influential, when you have more than enough, don't forget it was a gift from God. Friends, are we going to live our way or God's way? After all, thanks be to God, we are indeed very, very rich. To God be the glory, and all God's children say, amen.